Advanced Heroquest Gaming Aids Player Cheat Sheet. With many older rule sets, and some newer ones I might add, it is quite easy for potential new players to be overwhelmed by walls of text and verbose explanations when all they really want to do is just get stuck in. We have had a couple of new players join our Advanced Heroquest party, so I wanted to create an easy reference card for them to be able to quickly check at a glance what they can and cannot do. It doesn't explain anything in depth, indeed that's the point. It simply states what actions a player can perform. Although now, in this video, I will actually go through each point in more detail. Thus, this video will also serve as an overview of the general rules for playing Advanced Heroquest. Now, this is my third revision of these cheat sheets. Each time, I've been shortening and condensing them to what I feel is their bare essentials, which is why it's taken a while to get these done. The cheat sheets are designed to be a single card that has two sides. One for the exploration phase, and the other for the combat phase. You simply flip the card over depending which phase you're in. As usual, there's a link in the video description to download a free PDF of this card if you wish to use it. So next, what I want to do is go through each side of the card. I'll quickly explain each action, and I'll also note where there is the potential to modify or house rule the standard rules for the games, as I think most people who play Advanced Heroquest use house rules. We certainly do, although probably less than many groups. Before any house rules get used by us, we apply the following 3 criteria to it, and through this process we hope that we've been able to prevent ourselves implementing anything that could actually ruin the game or the experience of it for ourselves. Now, I think that these 3 guidelines will actually work for any game where you're thinking of dropping in some house rules. However, I'll let you, our erudite viewer, be the judge of that. So, our first 3 questions for evaluating a potential house rule are these. 1. Does it add something positive to the gaming experience? 2. Does it add to the verisimilitude of the game? 3. Is it easy to understand, use, and remember? If a potential house rule satisfies these 3 criteria by enhancing play, being something that could realistically happen, and also smoothly fits within the existing rules, or potentially streamlines part of the game, then it is something we will consider using. Right then, let's look at Advanced Heroquest. As I'm sure you are aware, the game is split into 2 phases, exploration and combat. We will begin by looking at exploration. Exploration. It is important to remember that the exploration phase is the default phase for Advanced Heroquest, but it ends as soon as any enemies are encountered. The actions that a player can perform in this phase are as follows. Number 1. Move. The most basic action a hero or a henchman can do is move. There are no facings in Advanced Heroquest, which is why all the original miniatures in the box set are on round bases. But movement is limited to only moving vertically or horizontally. There is no diagonal movement, although this means that there is some design space here for interesting characters or enemies and or skills. It's not something we've explored yet, but we will. Ethereal enemies seem like a good fit for diagonal movement. Anyway, although each character has a speed characteristic, this is irrelevant in the exploration phase. Everyone can move up to 12 squares. The plodding dwarf is as fast as a nimble elf. The rulebook states that this is the only action that henchmen can perform in the exploration phase. No opening doors, no searching, no opening treasure chests, no fun for them at all. However, we don't enforce this in our games, as it can tend to slow things down. We allow henchmen to do everything heroes can. However, this is something that needs to be decided in your own group with your games master before play starts. 2. Move and then open a door or chest. Doors that lead to an unexplored part of the map force players to stop at the door they intend to open. This is because all new dungeon sections are generated at the end of an exploration phase, after all the heroes have finished their actions. It's worth mentioning here that if the door being opened leads to a previously explored dungeon section, then it works slightly differently. The hero may either move to the door and then open it, as usual, or if they are already in front of the door, they may open it, then move. Now, another potential house rule here could be that opening or closing a door in such circumstances merely costs a square of movement, much as it did in contemporary games to Advanced Heroquest, such as Space Hulk or Advanced Space Crusade. By the way, watch this space for both those games on our channel in the future. Right. Moving and opening a closed chest also uses the same mechanic as doors. Something a games master should mention to their players is that the hero who opens a chest doesn't necessarily get its contents. Advanced Heroquest is a cooperative game, and items can be allocated to any of the heroes by mutual agreement, or the current leader can step in and decide. Also of note is the fact that all gold crowns that the party accumulates is shared equally between the heroes after an expedition. In the rulebook it states that each model can only carry a maximum of 250 gold crowns. However, in our games we have house ruled this to be the model's strength characteristic multiplied by 50 as their maximum gold crown allowance. 3. Search for a hidden door in the board section the hero is currently in. The rulebook states that a hero may search either a room or a dead end that they are currently in for secret doors. As it takes time, this counts as one whole action, and the player has to nominate the wall that they're going to search, and it must be in the board section that the player's model is already in. A wall can only be searched once, although there is an exception. If there is nowhere else to go in a dungeon, then previously searched walls can be searched again. Now, this particular action has a couple of areas for potential house rules. One could be that any wall section can be searched, not just dead ends and rooms. Another house rule could be that you can move and then search. Perhaps a hero could give up half their movement, 6 squares, and then search the section they are currently in after having moved already. These sort of house rules can speed things up, but they are again things that need to be decided before the heroes enter a dungeon between the GM and their players. 4. Search for hidden treasure in a room or investigate a piece of furniture. In the main rules, rooms can be additionally searched for treasure, not just doors. Again, the hero needs to be in the room and it can only ever be searched once. The room is searched as a whole, not wall by wall like looking for doors. Now, the potential house rules here are the same as for searching for doors, in my opinion. Now, if you are using the optional furniture rules from the rulebook, which are in the using the original HeroQuest section, each piece of furniture can also be searched. The potential here for making custom treasure tables is a fun design space in my opinion, and worth exploring. 5. Removing and putting on armor. If you are lucky enough to find some magic armor and wish to put it on immediately, this takes a whole action. You cannot move, you're too busy. You also leave your previously worn armor behind, but this is all the rulebook states. I would argue that this rule only extends to armor. Swapping out a shield or a helmet surely takes but a moment. We also allow for cast-offs to be immediately given to other players or henchmen in the vicinity in our games. 6. Move and cast magic. Magic users can move and cast a spell as a single action, so long as it only uses one spell component. If the spell uses 2, then the wizard, in most cases the wizard I guess, can only cast the spell and they cannot move. This is because it is more complicated. The use of the word "and" in move and cast, as opposed to "then," leads me to interpret this as the heroes can either cast, then move, or move, then cast. This gives you quite a bit of versatility. Okay, let's move on to combat. Combat. A combat phase begins as soon as any enemies are encountered, and it starts with something called a surprise roll. The GM and the current leader roll off. The players get to go first if the leader wins. The monsters get to go first if the GM wins. Players always win a tie because they're the ones kicking in the door. Elf characters also give a +1 to this roll if they are involved in the encounter. Now, there are a number of other nuances to this roll-off, but I will cover that in a separate video for GMs at some point in the near future. 1. Move and attack. Heroes can move up to their speed characteristic and attack. To attack, you roll a single D12 and compare the result to the weapon skill of your opponent as noted on your character sheet. If the hero hits their opponent, then they roll the number of damage dice for their weapon, also noted on your character sheet, and any results that equal or beat their opponent's toughness inflict a wound. Something that is easy to miss is that again, this rule uses the word "and." Thus, my interpretation is that you can move and then attack, or attack, then move. Something else that is easy to forget is that as your character's strength characteristic increases between expeditions, if you so choose to do so, their potential number of damage dice may also increase. Do keep an eye on that. The chart for that is on page 44 in the rulebook. Attacking also covers ranged combat. Now, this is a whole other kettle of fish. Firstly, the rulebook states that the model must first satisfy 5 criteria before they can even shoot. Number 1, the model must be carrying a ranged weapon, obviously. Number 2, the model must not be in a square adjacent to its target. Number 3, the model must not be in an enemy death zone. Number 4, the target must be within range of the model's weapon. Range is counted as the number of squares from the attacking model, not counting the square the model is on, to the target. counting the target square. You do not count diagonally, and the maximum range of the weapon is given on the model's character sheet, or the monster reference table. Now the model must have line of sight to the target as well. However, we have found this a little bit too restrictive. One of the house rules we use is that we allow ranged weapons with triggers, such as pistols, handguns, or crossbows, to be shot whilst adjacent to an enemy, even if they are in their death zone, as this seems reasonably realistic. Bows too we have allowed to be shot if adjacent to an enemy, however, not if they are in a death zone. The rules in the rulebook also state that players can only move and shoot with thrown weapons. However, in our games, we allow moving and shooting with any ranged weapon. I think anyone who has seen Legolas in The Lord of the Rings knows that elves can shoot and move. Also in the rules it states that before shooting you need to check line of sight. Be aware, other models block line of sight in Advanced Heroquest, apart from friendly models adjacent to the shooter. This means you can effectively shoot over the shoulder of your allies, but just don't roll a fumble. In a game a few years back, a slayer lost his mohawk and got severely singed when a buccaneer used him as a tripod. He was not a happy dwarf. I'd try to avoid that if I were you. Anyway, the range of a weapon gives you the number you need to hit your target, with that number being written on your character sheet. Now, these numbers will also change if you increase your bow skill, so don't forget to amend your character sheet if you do increase that characteristic. Damage works exactly the same as in close combat, although the damage is set to your weapon and it is independent of your strength. And one last thing that's easy to forget is this. Don't forget that as soon as the combat phase finishes, you can retrieve used missiles. You roll a die for each. On a 7 or more, you can retrieve it and use it again. This is primarily for thrown weapons, such as throwing axes, javelins, spears. Arrows or crossbow bolts are only retrieved on a 10 or more though. I would say that black powder shot, which we use in our games and is in itself a house rule, cannot be retrieved for obvious reasons. 2. Run. This is an underused action in my opinion, but very useful, especially for your slow heavy hitters like the knight and dwarf. To run, you simply move and then roll a d12. On a 2 or more, you can move that many extra squares. On a 1, unfortunately, you fall over though, and you cannot move any further. There is nothing in the rules about this, but I feel that perhaps getting a bonus of some kind for rolling a 12 could be a fun thing to add to your house rules if you're so inclined. For example, you could let a hero then attack to represent them literally charging in and hurling themselves at the enemy. That would make for a very cinematic moment in my opinion, and surely that's what it's all about. It's always worth bearing in mind that Advanced Heroquest is at heart a role-playing game. It even says so on the box. 3. Move and then open a door. This action is effectively in lieu of attacking, in essence anyway, except that the attack portion of the action is to either open or close a door. 4. Move and cast magic. This is identical to the action in the exploration phase. I think enough said. And I think that's it. Feel free to try out these cheat sheets, and any feedback would be very welcome, especially if you have any corrections, ideas, or alternative interpretations. Please leave them in the comments. We'd also love to hear from you if you're using any interesting house rules. Okay, happy gaming everyone, and may the dice gods bless your rolls.